So Jeremy White, he's a local radio personality in Buffalo, New York. He came up with this concept. He calls it the preseason pledge. Now, while watching American football, he came up with this idea of I'm not gonna get too excited over things that are happening in preseason games. Right, and the pledge reads: I state your name, do solemnly swear before the football deities and the mother of momentum and father time that I shall not take any serious evaluations out of the preseason. No interceptions, nor touchdowns, nor vanilla schemes. No play calls, no scoreboards, nor killer instinct. I shall only hope to only come out injury-free, and shall toss everything else aside into the burning fire of football's molten volcano of takes, and wait for the start of the real football season. Now, why do I say something like this? Do I take as much value as that, say, in a youth tournament? No. But I think there's a point to be made when looking at youth tournaments that these aren't the finished products and this isn't the end all and be all. While we do hope for a nation to win, winning breeds success. Success continues to breed confidence. Confident winning breeds domination, whatever your order you want to look at. I do think that when it comes to evaluating youth tournaments, you should do it with a grain of salt. You can't evaluate an entire country's development based off of how they do in a tournament. At the same time, some players do peak at this level and others are just on the road for development. There are things to like, there are things to not like. But at the end of the day, it's all an evaluation and it's all a process. Something you'll always hear me say is that development is not linear. So nor should our reaction be. Because they lose, it doesn't mean that we are doomed to fail, nor does success mean that future victories are in the books. With that all said, let's talk about things we liked and didn't like about Canada at the U17s. So, first of all, congratulations to Andrew Olivieri, the technical staff, everyone, for qualifying for the U17 World Cup. It's a good accomplishment. It's good to see another youth Canadian team making it to the world stage at their level. We've seen the women's U17s and U20s. The men's, the boys, had a little bit of a step back, but we're still on the hope for what they have. I'm hoping maybe they get some play this summer. I've heard rumblings of that, but I won't go into that. We'll have it confirmed. But with that being the case, congratulations to the team. And let's go on to things that we liked. I think if you are looking at the pipeline and trying to project maybe in a post-2026 national team setup, if you're going to judge the U17s, and again, I know I just had my whole preamble about not looking too much into what we get because the players may not develop as they do, but there's definitely some prospects in the starting three. Stefanovic, Chukwu, and Omezi, those three center backs, and wherever they profile as, or maybe some, I know Omezi and Chukwu did look tonight to advance a little bit here. I think the center back depth playing in that 3-5-2, it's very much encouraging to look at. It was nice to see, and I'm curious to see what it looks like. I know Stefanovic just whiffs on the final goal versus the US, give a free kick, but Omezi and Chukwu specifically, for such young players, performing how they have, I really did like what we saw from them. Whether that's just defensive prowess, dealing with set pieces, moving from there. Corners, I don't think we conceded from a corner this tournament. So seeing them really take charge in that back line, really encouraging. Loved what I saw there from the back three. The center backs look good. It looks like a pipeline is coming. We hope. Another thing I really liked about this tournament was that they looked like they knew what they were doing. Right? They're very methodical. I complained about it to a degree, but their pace of play was good. But on the pitch, you saw what their patterns were. You knew what they were trying to do. On occasion, they may see something and try it, whether it's a through ball down the middle or going, but controlling the midfield, getting the ball out to the wing backs, getting balls in. Sometimes to a fault, making sure there are players to send the ball in, even if it's just one, making sure you have two numbers advantage moving. but you saw this group with an identity. It's nice to see versus just a collection of players kind of playing and seeing what they're able to do. I like that. Now, it does help that they've had the same coach. This is one of my questions with the U20s. They had Olivieri training them during games, and then Biello took over once the tournament started. I think two different places, though, you get at work. It can seem a bit disjointed. So it was nice to see that level of just consistency come through. For the most part, we saw every player play. To go into tactics of switching your goalkeeper in the semis, it's a question. It's a choice, to be honest. I don't know if I necessarily disagree or agree with it. It was just a choice. But we went there. Also, on a very random note, why don't they have a third place game? Especially with how formatting goes now, how qualifiers work. Ranking your top two might matter, especially say if you're like a US. What if the US had lost to Canada and then now it's down to Canada moving forward? Are they just rewarding carte blanche the top two finishers? Because if that's what they're doing, okay. But without having a third place game, the points, the matchups, all those things should matter. So now this is more than just me wanting a third place game, but I think a third place game should matter because points, ranking, placing teams in pots, it should matter. Now there's going to be more positives, more negatives we'll talk about. Probably a podcast out at some point. Link in the description when that's out. But here's some of my questions and concerns. And again, like I said earlier, we're evaluating youth players at a U17 level when they're just really starting to develop into the players that they will be or that they can become. So take all this with a grain of salt. But when it comes to youth teams, and this is almost a bit of the counter my point that I just made. Having an identity helps, but sometimes it's not going to be perfect. I ask myself if the 3-5-2, for example, is the best lineup, the best formation for this group, especially when you have some players that maybe don't fit it. Now, Olivieri built his team that way. So he had the fullbacks who do it. He had forwards who would do it. But then when you have forwards, you have players who can play as nines, who really are probably best suited as wingers, right? Ibrahim Ghazi is an example of that. For me, profiled more like a winger, but his only spot to play on this team was as a forward. So you didn't really see maybe the best showing of him. You also saw asked questions in terms of what players are, positions that they can, more emphasis on the midfield, matchups within that. Now, I don't mind, like I said, the idea of a coach coming in with an identity, with a plan, wanting to do things, but sometimes, you just want to ask the question. Again, we're going over this further detail later, but the last question I do ask myself is, I wonder where we are with finding a creative midfielder. Now, this isn't the end-all and be-all for things, but, we saw Biello in the midfield, more deep line. There are players who have played in that attacking midfield. For example, Robert Chu, who plays as an attacking midfield at times. And he's one of your best center backs. So sky's the limit for him. Also, the entire Chuku family have entered a chat saying, "We are here, and don't forget us." There's gonna be so many siblings and twins coming up. But I wonder how we are doing. Now, you can't necessarily emphasize creating that type of a role. But at the same time, I feel that within the entire pipeline, that creative midfielder is a piece I think we're really missing that could really enhance, but really unlock a lot of the attacking prowess at the senior level. But that's just my opinion. And BL definitely showed, Njai showed some as well, Bodwell showed well as well. Mackenzie is a player that intrigues me in that sense as well. He's the type of player who has those leadership qualities, but then also is a player who has a nose for finding the ball and being where it needs to be. But overall, not too disappointing. Again, it'll be a longer format of this, but I just want to give you some thoughts here. You guys let me know what you thought. Who's impressed you here? What players were you intrigued about? And maybe you want to bring up someone who wasn't on this U20 team. Maybe we should have this conversation as well. Who are players you think could potentially be on this squad when it comes to the World Cup in November or later on this year? You guys leave in the comments below. I'm going to stop rambling now, but thank you so much